will use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that when you're getting on the show, you're well organized and you take as little time as you can so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves. And then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem not within our broadcast standards. Again, thank you all for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. Tonight, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, good evening.
Good evening, Webo. Good evening to my fellow panelists. And I would like to say a good evening to the entire listening and viewing audiences, and to say as well season's greetings. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome back Mr. Brand. I haven't seen him for a while. Mr. Brand, we missed you. And of course, to extend good evening to our long time missing colleague, Mr. Hobson. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. Well, I would just like to extend some heartfelt season's greetings to the people in the USVI, the BVI, New York, the entire USA, the UK, in particular my husband, and of course the entire diaspora. At least I am hoping that we'll all have a bright Christmas. And so whatever you have to do, just stay safe and be good. Thanks for the invitation to join you, Webo.
Conrad Nair-Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webo, and good evening to my colleagues around the table, to everyone in tune to this program. Special good evening to you. To my brethren in Connecticut, long time having a touch base, and I know you regular on the program every Tuesday. A pleasant good evening to you guys. Webo, I'm happy to be here. As usual, we gathered to discuss the issues affecting the people, and of course, and to pay homage to those who we think is worthwhile to receive such acclamants. Webo, I'm happy to be here. Once again, there is an issue, and I'm very tentative about bringing it at this point. So I won't go there, but I am I'm aware that there are some grieving people, and we're approaching the Christmas holidays. And of course, I feel bad that some of us won't be happy. Really, it's a pleasure to have me tonight.
The Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webo, and a very pleasant good evening to my colleagues around the table. I want to say how delighted I am to be back here. I was absent for a few weeks for one reason or the other. I certainly want to apologize for that. Some of it were due to circumstances beyond my control. But I just want to say, Weber, good evening to our listeners and viewers who are listening and viewing this edition of Let's Talk tonight. I want to say to those persons who are feeling a bit down for one reason or the other, a loss in the family, some difficult period that they're going through, I want to use this opportunity to offer my heartfelt and profound condolences to those who are mourning tonight. For those persons who are in various hospitals here in St. Kitts and Nevis and throughout the world who are seeking medical attention, I hope that they will be up and about very shortly. The hand of Almighty, and with the assistance of our medical professionals, that I hope that they will be made well once again. To those, Weber, who are celebrating tonight, whether it's a birthday, a wedding anniversary, or some accomplishment in their life, certainly want to wish them a wonderful evening. And I just want to say that while they celebrate and while we look forward to this Christmastide season, that we would never forget the true meaning of Christmas. I want to say good night to Mr. Hobson. He's well. We just wasn't able to get our business sorted out this evening, so that's why he's not here. I want to apologize for that. Good evening, Weber, and thanks again for the invitation.
Dr. Bartlett, seems as if you got stage fright, because you in particular, and then Naya too, but you more so, kept asking, "Where's Mr. Brand? I need to see him." I got to, you remember that, Naya? So let's start off with that.
Oh boy.
You got a message.
It looks
for
like
me.
I'm in trouble.
I don't know when coming back.
No, it's well, okay. If you what, let us say, when they have discussions and meetings, and so you yield back the time then.
Well, you had burning issues too, because I realized that it rained, so you must have a
Right.
more current
Yeah,
issue.
but keep this in mind. I'm the chair, so I, you know,
Okay, you have the prerogative to pass it on.
yeah, there you go.
Well,
So.
Yeah.
No. But keep in mind,
We'll
you can
get
yield
it.
back the time, you know. If you don't want to, it's okay.
Well, for now, I'll leave by the time.
Okay, what about you, Naya? Yield back as well?
No, not really.
Okay, so then go.
It is Mr. Stanley.
No, so you yield back the
No, I don't
time?
yield back no time. No, Mr. Brand, notice I've been made of the bad road situation, or the pathway. I'm not sure if it's a road, but to get to Vaughan Radio and beyond. One would have realized that Vaughan Radio is an institution here in Nevis.
Absolutely.
And I don't need to speak much of Vaughan Radio to anyone in Nevis, and the importance and relevance of Vaughan Radio. And just the other night there was a storm, and I find it difficult to cross the large pool of water that is always, you know, just outside Vaughan Radio, just about 100 meters away. And I wonder if you or the other governments that's gone before you, or your government is wondering about a quid pro quo or something. Why, you know, I mean, it's taking so long, but it doesn't have to be, because really it's a public utility, and it would not only serve Vaughan Radio. So one would want you to consider that. And I think you have been. But you're good friends with Webo. And sometimes good friends can be delayed and without without a wrath. But the members of the public sometimes wonder why.
Well, if I may, the road, not only to Vaughan Radio, but you know, we would have started some rehabilitation work here in Bath Village. It is something that we intend to have completed, not only to Vaughan Radio, but in other areas of Bath Village. The truth is now that there is an overwhelming demand for better roads throughout the length and breadth of Nevis. And while we are mindful of not only this piece of roads, I mean, you can, I'm sure in 10 seconds you can write down from off the top of your head, different areas of Nevis that needs attention when it regards to road. I hear your point when it comes to Vaughan Radio as an institution, and I am mindful of that. We are hoping that we will get to this section in a very short order, that we can have this matter dealt with, not only in this area, but like I said, in other areas of Bath Village and in other areas throughout Nevis. But sometimes we sit down, we plan, we make plans. One of the challenges that we often tend to have is access to resources at times. And my ministry is a ministry that absolutely uses finances. It is not a ministry that, but I'm not trying to make any excuse. It is something that I am aware of, and it is something that I know that needs to be done. It is a commitment that I know that I would have made to have this section of road done, and we intend to have it done.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webo. Good evening, my fellow panelists. Good evening to all the people who have listened to us over 31 years that Vaughan Radio has been on and in existence, and this program especially. And to all the people who listen to us via this program, Vaughan, YouTube and Facebook, welcome him aboard, And again, this program is yours. And hence we always look forward to your participation. And your participation, of course, strengthens and expands the program. And so many people listen to it. Well, as we go throughout the length and breadth of St. Kitts and Nevis, people would always talk about Vaughan Radio and the program, the heavyweight program. And sometimes they recognize us without our even telling them whom we are, simply because our voices have become familiar to many, many listeners. And again, we applaud you and we appeal to you to always listen and participate. Well, this evening, of course, is a good, happy evening because we all had a good laugh here at the beginning of the program. And I hope this is how we would always continue, or we would do the program. Once in a while, you know, a little jab would be passed across my chest, and you know, you have to defend it, and we do small little jabs here and there. And it makes the program very interesting. And people commented periodically that these little jibs and jabs do become interesting. But we have to become engaged and get very serious about the program. Well, based on what I was listening to the last session of our House of Assembly, people ask me, well, why and how? I said, well, unfortunately, have you ever heard of a game that didn't have an opponent? I said, no. Well, I said, well, listen to the House of Assembly. Why are the chairs on the other side, or the benches on the other side, empty? Well, of course, it's a game seemingly that has only one player. But it is based on participation or the lack thereof. But the warning signs have been there for quite some time and for many years, and I kept telling them, once you are being factual and truthful to the people, you will always be there. And I repeat this all the time, and I said, they are hard choices. And go to the people, not necessarily through an election, but also to go back and tell them, this is what we have to do. The hard choices help us to make these hard choices. And once you're factual and truthful to people, they will develop a likeness to you and for you, and they would believe you. Some, of course, based on how they're wired mentally, they might tell you, I don't believe you, like Weber usually says. He told somebody something, and he said, I don't believe you anyway. But once you have told them the truth, no matter whom it is, you leave that with them. It's up to them and their conscience. And sometimes a man who is convinced against his will holds the same opinion still. And we find much of that within our community. So we are here, and I, again, would tell those who are in the game of politics, you played right if you played truthful and factual. And the time will come when old soldiers would fade away and make room for younger players or younger soldiers, as the case might be. It's a game that so many people want to be in. Sometimes they're not even qualified to be in the game, but they still want to get in. And you look at it, you check the numbers. There are people who definitely cannot play, but if you ask them to play, they would quickly jump for the opportunity to play. I mean, I was at a meeting last night, and I heard there is one person at the St. Kitts end who obviously would be getting the nod to run in a particular constituency. And I believe it is a tall order based on the opponent, but I understood that they will jump at the opportunity just to be in the game. In here too, there were quite a number of people who told me last election that they wanted to get a chance to run, one fellow, I see him and I kept saying to myself, he doesn't look the part. But how can he play the part? But he wants to run. And I gotta tell you, anytime they give him an opportunity, he will run. Anyhow, well, we will continue this program and to see how many people Vaughan Radio can continue to mold. And seemingly there's a ball coming at your leg stump, Webo. I'll say no more.
Let me make a little point. You know, to see how interesting it is why Mr. Brand sometimes why you need surrogates in your position, because a lot of things people will not tell you, but it does not mean they do not occur, because these guys were forceful, and so was I. So now here's my turn. A lady came right over here and she told me to tell you that she was not pleased with the road, in reference to the same thing Naya was speaking about. It was like a pool, and she had a car which was low, and she scarcely could have gotten over. And so that she did not get overwhelmed, she laughed at herself. And she said, "Tell Mr. Brand that he comes here every week and he needs to do better than that." I told her I will tell him. So, and by the way, by way of information, the lady is from Charlestown. So, I made sure that I just presented as it was delivered, and I didn't want to say this part. She said, maybe it's because they think it's your road. She told me she was going to listen, so I made sure that I told you. Now, the final thing I have to say, those guys were more forceful, so to get the message clear, I might have to ask Marcellus to go back for the tapes to play it for you, because when they're in front of you. So that's my bit. Oh, and the second thing that I had, I said I was going to ask you. Naya didn't agree with me. He said I wasn't good enough. I was going to ask you, next time you see the premier, to tell him that he needs a competent press secretary who can speak on his behalf with authority, right? Because there were some people who seem as if they don't want to speak directly to him, but they like him to get the message. And so they give me. So against that backdrop, please tell him
that you're petitioning for the job.
He needs a competent press secretary. So those were what I said behind your back. Okay. So,
I know you've said them.
yeah,
said them in front of my face.
Right. And I believe if you compare, if we go back to the tapes, I believe I would be the closest to the actual thing. Okay. So having done all that, what else we've got?
Well, it seems like nobody else has anything. It's Christmas time, so maybe people are already in that mode. I just want to point out, and just yesterday someone sent me, this clip. I didn't see it firsthand myself. In Finland now, we have a female-dominant cabinet for the first time. And we have a lady who is just 34 years old, who is now the Prime Minister. So I said that because on the heel of that, there was a comment that was made by an ex-Prime Minister of the same country who said that he was so proud, even though it was not his party that was now ruling he was so proud of the developments there that you can have so many women represented at that level. And he said that that is progressive. So I'm hoping that our people here will be able to take something from that to see where progress really, is measured, how progress is really measured. Some people think that progress is measured by roads and buildings, but that's not the ultimate. People at some point in time need something more than that. So I just say that for its word and say congratulations to Finland again. That is not their first woman prime minister, by the way. They regularly have those. This, I think, is the third, they said, in recent times. So, enough said.
Well, we're always applauding women, and we know that in a past administration there was a very powerful woman, Ms. Constance Mitchum, and she performed admirably. And we know that there are women who can perform. And we also know that there are some women who cannot perform.
There's some men who can perform.
And we also know that some are vying to prove that they can perform. But the metal must be tested. And there are so many avenues through which the metal would be tested. So there is no real agonizing issue at the forefront when it comes to women. We know that they are women, and they, of course, statistics have proven they live longer than we do. Statistics have proven now that they are at the forefront of some of the disciplines when it comes to higher education. And we know that they have always been the breadwinner in most cases in the earlier years in many, many of the households in Nevis. So, and I've always said, the best thing that the Master has done for man and men is the creation of women. So the barometer is there. The wheel is there. It doesn't need to be reinvented. But some people continue to amplify their voices regarding women, as if the time will not come for their turn. And I hope when the time comes and the turn comes, we will not be disappointed. But we know there are some women who, in fact, have been in public office and they've gotten blasted for certain things and decisions that they have made. But men too. But at the same time, we cannot forget biblical scriptures. God has put man to lead and rule. And we must not oppose biblical scriptures and teachings. And therefore, we as men must continue to understand our role and responsibility within the human species and take up the mantle and task that God has endowed us to carry and perform well. Those who cannot perform, please get off the stage and let's say, alpha male, competent male, and those who can always demonstrate true leadership. Webo.
I remember you said one night, Webo, I think that was an admonition to most of us. I mean, those of us who take you seriously. Sometimes you just talk and you just talk too much and then you run into trouble. Because Stanley just said something that it just blew me away, I saw and I could feel, the discomfort around the table. I'm not the only one who thought was foolishness he was saying, but I guess maybe I'm the only one who would come forward and say it. But having said that, though, I think maybe he kind of took the thing out of context. What I'm trying to suggest is, in places where people are installing women, they consider that is a progressive move. Whereas here, we're trying to suppress women. What does that say about us? And I think that is the point I wanted to drive home. Some people might be uncomfortable with it, but the truth of the matter is that at some point we're going to have to look at it seriously and allow the participation to the extent that, it is well overdue. It is well overdue. And it's one thing where you could sit back and say, okay, well, let them, if they would like to play, let them enter the ring. But sometimes, if you're going to block a man, you know, it's not right. And that has been my cry for the past couple of weeks. And I continue to make the same plea, you know, give women the fair chance. You know, that's all we ask. Give women the fair chance.
Let's get cases in point. And let's try and thrash it out here so that the listening audience, they might be the referee, but we too can truly understand where we are. I do understand what can be progressive. I do understand that some people need a chance. But have they, in fact, been able to test their mettle and to demand that they are more qualified to do this job?
Stanley, what is the qualification? What is the qualification? You're always making reference to these abstract things.
Okay,
The qualification.
let me just take this call. I'll get back to you, Dr. Bartlett. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. I was listening just now, and I'm not sure if Mr. Stanley was serious or if he was joking when he was quoting scripture as the basis for women not being elevated. If he was serious, it would be sad indeed, because too often we take cultural norms and make them divine. And we got to be careful about that, because scripture was written in a very patriarchal context where women were property, and to use that as a means of deciding how to treat women today is kind of negative, I think.
Are you biblically speaking? Call, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you biblically speaking? And I said, biblically speaking. We know what God said.
I heard all of that.
So,
To use the term biblically speaking before saying what you say is not deep at all. I mean, to me, it's the laziest form of an argument to say biblically speaking, because you can't just say biblically speaking without understanding the context and the history of what you're about to say.
you're telling me I don't understand what I'm trying to say? I know what I'm trying to say, and I'm telling you,
No, I am
biblically
saying that
speaking, the master says, man or men, we must lead.
But the point I'm making is that everything in Scripture is written in a context and in a time. And you have to be conscious of the context and the time in which it was written to recognize that much of what we conclude to be divine is actually cultural. And if you look at the cultural period and the cultural area of where the Old Testament was written, it was totally patriarchal. And as I said before, where women were property. And therefore it is in that context that they're writing the scripture out of their lived norms. So today in the 21st century, we can look back at that as an example and say, well, that's how women are supposed to be treated today. So just to quote and say, well, the Bible says, to me, as I said, it's a cop-out.
Caller, might I ask you a question?
Sure, you may.
What if, Mr. Stanley, if we were to follow off the argument that you're making, what if Mr. Stanley is then thinking that he wants to adopt that cultural norm in this contemporary time?
Then people might stone him like they used to stone people in those times too.
Mr. Stanley, are you?
Well, no, I'm just stating that based on the fact, I'm not going to challenge anybody on the Bible. I'm not a biblical person in the true sense of the word. But I'm saying to you that we know what the history is.
So you're
made
not
Adam
a
and Eve.
biblical person. You're not challenging
but-
anybody in it. So you're talking what you do not know.
No, that's not necessarily
that-
true.
that-
I am
that's what
saying
it
to you
sounds like
that
to me.
based on the simple fact that we know God made Adam and Eve, and he put Adam with the hope that he would lead Eve. And I'm not off biblically speaking.
But he did not lead Eve. Eve outfoxed him.
Well, at a certain point in time, you reach to a certain stage where you recognize that the man is not wearing the pants, and therefore you have to unpants him. If you want, if may I.
So then that's what Dr. Dr. Bartlett is arguing then.
Obviously, when a woman comes to the fore and she is a good leader,
So you
then-
concede.
And I have not conceded.
Okay.
I said that I started out mentioning the lady Kansi Mitcham, and we could go back, Golda Meir of Israel. We can go
Okay,
back
well let me
with
let,
many of the ladies who were
let's
defined as
finish.
good leaders.
Let's finish up with the caller. Caller,
All right.
you finish up with your point.
I think I've made my point. I will listen and see where Mr. Stanley is going to put his foot further into his mouth.
Well, I'm just saying that there are leaders, female leaders, and we know that they have come to the fore at certain periods, and they have
They've-
performed
Mr.
well,
Stanley, Mr.
and
Stanley,
therefore that is.
they've always,
Mr. Stanley, let the caller go ahead. Yeah.
They've always been female leaders. I recommend to you a book entitled When God Was a Woman. Try and find that book, Mr. Stanley, and read it.
Okay. All right, caller.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you very much.
thanks
I'll,
much.
I'll continue listening.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Okay, please call back caller, Dr. Bartlett.
Where was I again? I I'm glad that the caller, had the courage to call in.
Well, one of the things I want to instruct or guide us, and I was talking to someone today, and over the history of when we debate. I like a good debate, and when you see we get a topic and we start debating it, it gets rough. It gets rough, not in terms of anger, but let me use the description the caller used earlier. It gets deep. So that if a person wants to start a debate or challenge on something in earnest, don't do it if you really don't want to have a great debate, because it can get deep.
Well, I
Well,
have not
well,
read the
Mr.
book,
Mr.
actually.
Brand. Mr. Brand.
Well, I have a daughter, well, and I don't want her to think, and I don't want our young girls to think that the opportunities that are available are only available to certain people. I believe, Weber, that we have had a track record, maybe not perfect, but we have had a track record here in this country where women have been in elective politics, in influential positions. They have been elevated to some of the highest offices in our federation and in our land. I don't want that any young lady or any woman out there to feel that that they cannot rise to the top in anything. And I want to say that again. I don't want any lady out there to feel that they cannot rise to the top in anything here in our country. The opportunities are there. They will just need to do what they need to do to get to that level. With that said, Webo, we have had Nurse Jean, and I think we can put that in politics. We are talking about, I think, most of the time in politics. We have had Nurse Jean. Nurse Jean has been a shining example of a woman who was a nurse, very good nurse, outstanding nurse, who rose to the top in politics. And I believe that she would have applied herself, would have made the argument and make the case, and she would have been at that level. So I don't want any individual to feel that there cannot be another Nurse Jean. Mr. Stanley spoke about Kansi Mitchell. I don't want our girls to feel that there cannot be another Kansi Mitchell.
So what are you doing to assist them? Because there's some of us who seem to think that, you know, your party is not being fair to the lone female who you may have right now.
Dr. Bartlett, you sure you want to bring that debate?
Yes.
Because
Yes. Because I
when
keep bringing it up and Mr.
okay,
Bradley was not here to respond,
his
so
party
he's
has not been fair to the woman. What have they done her?
There's a process, I understand, which, you know, was not followed.
What is
her
the
Wait, what is the process?
to
that
give
was
her
not followed?
to give her the opportunity to run in her district.
What is the
that was not
process?
I
followed?
understand that they were supposed to go through the well. I am not a part of their party, but I understand that a process that, and I am not going to say what the process is.
Yeah,
because
but you
Mr.
see
Brand
that-
knows it.
you
Mr.
know, but
Brand knows the process.
No, but I don't know.
So don't ask me.
No,
I don't know.
I will tell you what
Dr.
All I'm
Bartlett.
here- I am just saying that I've learned that the process.
Yeah, but
has
we
not
don't
been
debate
followed.
like that.
But I'm just saying.
No, we do not debate.
I am saying that
you
I
cannot,
found what-
Dr. Bartlett, you cannot come with mere speculations. That is why I keep saying.
No, but it's up to him to it's
No,
up
no,
to Mr.
no,
Brand.
it's not
He's
up
a
to
part of the
Mr.
process.
It's
I
not up to
cannot
Mr.
decide
Brand.
what the process is. I'm not a part of the process. I
It
don't
i-
know what it is.
It is not up to Mr. Brand, Dr. Bartlett.
But he knows what the process is.
No,
You're
it-
asking me questions that he could answer.
No, it is up to me.
No, but you're asking me questions that he ought to be able to
No,
answer. I
no, no,
can't.
no,
I
no,
already
no, no.
said I can't.
Mr. Brand did not put the premise on the table. You did.
Yes. and I
You said,
Mm.
and I asked you the question.
Yes.
What is the grievance or what has been done to this person?
And I outlined to you as best as I know it.
Yeah,
I'm not giving any evidence to say that I saw this or I didn't see that. I'm just saying.
but that is what I'm
just like Mr. Stanley would say, the evidence
No.
that came to under my desk,
no.
the information that reached my desk,
Let's
suggests that
do
there was
this.
supposed to be a
Let's-
process that was
let's-
curtailed.
Let's do this. Get the information and come and let's have a debate.
But it's not fair to shut down the debate because you don't like the way it's going.
No, but that's
But
why
that's
it's
your prerogative, I guess.
exactly.
And there you go.
And right when and we said that from day one, and from 30 years,
It's your show. You're
It-
right.
everybody knows that,
Yep.
right?
But
So
if Brad knows the process, I don't know why you want to
No,
say
the-
to find
the-
out the process
the-
that
the
Brad
point-
knows. You're like, eh.
the point we're making is this: everybody knows the rules, right? And I don't shy away from it. Even Mr. Stanley, sometimes I tell Mr. Stanley, that's it.
Yes, Webo. But if I may, what I said was, I was not clear on the rules. I said, I think that you have a good resource person here, in Mr. Brown, who ought to know the rules. If indeed he knows the rules and I don't, why not give him the opportunity to let us all be enlightened about the rules? Well, I thought that was a fair proposition on my part, but if you're going to shut it down, that is your prerogative, darling. I'm good with it.
No, what I'm saying is, right? I keep saying it's the same thing that we had with the issue we had with the premier and this residence, right? People bring things, they don't have no facts, they want to put it. When we debate things, right? We don't just cast aspersions on people, right? We've had with the 80 acres, we had the discussion, and I put it on hold. I said, let's get the information, and we discuss it. We do things in a responsible manner, right? And I'm not discussing anything or anybody's affairs, right? Without, I mean, you keep saying it, okay, if you got permission and the person tells you, well, because the next thing you know, the person says, I never told them that. I don't know anything about that.
So I didn't come and say the person said anything to me. I said I have learned.
But so
And so I'm sharing what I've learned. People
You-
keep come here all the time and say what I hear.
anyway,
I never knew this to be a quote of you have to have that kind of.
anyhow, continue.
anyway.
Yes, continue. Because if you keep saying that people doing this person that, what
No,
they
no.
did the person?
Do what?
What did they do them?
No, but you want to shut down the argument. So I was like, okay, that's your prerogative.
No, but the point is that you,
We're going to play by your rules, yeah?
but you knew that, Dr. Bartlett.
Yes, yeah, we're going to play by your rules. You leave it
But
right there.
yeah, and
But anyway, if
no,
I may though.
let me just make this thing clear, right? The program is run by myself.
Of course.
When we discuss it, we said these are the conditions, right? And I told a caller a couple of months or maybe a year or so ago, you're not going to call in, say you hear this, you hear that, and then when you look, we end up on the clock, and then when I say that you bring certain issues, we examine them. If we feel that it's just a lot of speculation, we leave it alone.
Okay, Webo. Fair. But you know what I'm kind of perplexed by? This notion that men, they're in the race long time, you know, and they would have already had a couple of laps, like 10 laps, some people, you know, and somebody else entered the track and they're way behind, you know, and they still want us in their place. And I just don't understand that kind of thing in our society. But I guess we learn, we live, we learn. And I leave it right there.
And my problem is that sometimes you're asked to be given, and I have a problem with asked to be given. And I feel that you should set the initiative and you set up your firepower and bring to the table the firepower that would not give you something, but you're capable, based on how you've brought something, to galvanize yourself and make inroads and reach to where you want to go. Your destiny is the top. Set the strategy in place to reach to your destiny, which is at the top. But to, in my view, looking for a set-aside program, everybody's looking for a set-aside program. When I say everybody, most people are looking for a set-aside program. And that's why you might have a selection and a rejection. And sometimes when it falls on the side of rejection, then people get offended. But I'm saying to you, I do not like the idea of people asking to be given something when they might have the firepower to take it. And with reference to a ladies' party, an individual lady who wants to reach to the top, railroad yourself in terms of preparation to get to your destiny, which is the top.
You know, what I find is interesting as well, in this politics thing, through the years, I've heard on the street a number of people saying that they have this new party, that new party, and so on and so forth. This new candidate, that new candidate. And I always, if I learn or heard that Edric is going to run, I say, Edric.
Come on the program.
No, I said, I understand you're going to run. It's true? Me. Not me. Right? So I leave it there. About, I think, 2 or 3 nights ago, I heard on the street, people are saying this gentleman is going to run. I didn't bring it here. I saw the gentleman. I said, I understand that you're going to be running. So, but me, not me. Right? I didn't bring it here. So you don't bring every little thing you hear. Because what did the guy tell me? Not me, I didn't say it. So I understand a lot of these things. There's a new party just been formed. Gentleman, I got the information, he was the secretary of the party. I went, I saw him, I said, understand, I told these people don't call my name. Now, these are things I don't bring here because there's a time and place for everything. So when we bring things here, we want to search and bring the information to the people that is... There are a lot of things that you engage in that I don't bring here. See, so that's the point that we're making. A lot of the times people say things, and when you go to fact check or check them out, the people said they don't know anything about it.
I use myself sometimes as a barometer, a lot of times. And for me, if I want something, I go after it, but I make self-preparation. If I fail, I fail. But I would tell you what have done. If anybody asks me, how did you fail or why did you fail? I'd say, well, this is what I've done. And maybe I failed simply because enough time had not been put into it. I mean, I've entered the race politically, not only here, but in another jurisdiction. And it wasn't really to win, but to make a statement. But the statement was not about Edric Stanley per se. It was for a regional group of people. And you many times hammered me here, how come you become a Republican? Because conceptually, Republicans are supposed to be white. But historically, the Republican Party was the black man's party.
This is time for a light moment. Republicans are supposed to be white.
Well,
Work with me. You're a Republican, and the evidence will show you have on a white shirt.
Always.
yes, well, yes, well.
But that's what I'm saying. It is just a light moment.
Yes, well,
So you didn't say what part of them are supposed to be white. It could be the clothing.
well, no, but we know when you say white.
Yeah, okay.
in terms of
I
people.
did say it was a light moment.
Yes, okay, white.
Okay,
white.
now you wanted to get in.
Yes, I wanted to say, Webo, a little help is good. I think the proudest amongst us would always appreciate a little help, a little push going forward. The question is whether or not we or the society and those who are in influential position does consider what is expected of them as it relates to the advancement of women. Yes, we're here discussing a political role for women, but sometimes if we look at women globally, generally, it's difficult to say that they have been treated fairly and given a fair chance. In France, domestic violence and murder of the female in domestic situation is very much widespread.
Niall,
You know-
in the politics, let's stay on that. And in the United States, the Democratic race currently,
Yes.
they have about 4 or 5 women.
Yes.
Would you say they have been given a fair chance? Of course, you don't know all the ins and outs, but based on what you see.
Yes, I
But-
would think so.
But most of them have been, a couple of them have dropped out so far.
Yes. I agree with
And
that.
1 or 2 others are not polling so well.
Not doing
But
well.
you think, based on what you've seen, they've been given a fair shake?
Based on what I've seen, Webo. But Webo, there's this psychological thing, this psychological indentation. Look, Webo, this male dominant things run through the thread and every fiber of our society.
But here's a
Even
fact.
women themselves, sometimes the things they say to me, I got to remind them that, we are equal.
That's a point I was going to point out to you, because in the same Democratic race, one of the main reasons why some of these women have to be dropping out and not doing so well is because some of the men are polling better amongst the women than they.
Yes.
How do you explain that?
Well, it doesn't need to be explained. I mean, that is everyone's prerogative and everyone's want to choose. But, the availability, the choice is important. But, Webo, I was saying that everyone will appreciate a little help. But, Webo, my thing is, if you're called, take the stand. You got to find ways and means and avenues to reach the people. If no one wants, if you can't hitchhike, you got to get there somehow.
So in other words, if one road won't take you there, get another.
Get another road.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yeah, Webo.
Yes.
Yeah, concerning the female part of it, didn't we have not seen over my side there? And we had, I think, Miss Nurse Hanley in the Gingerland area, I mean, the community, there were people in the community that the people wanted to be, who felt like they should be running, you know, for these parties. And they had their shot, and I believe if there are females in the community, when their time comes, they will have their fair shot also.
The question,
Quite true.
the question I might ask in that instance, yes, is what is meant by the when the time comes. Because I'll ask Mr. Brand the question. Mr. Brand, you are in, you know, the candidate at this given point. And if someone were to come and say to you, you know, I think you should allow Miss Brown to run instead, because would you just for that reason alone move aside?
No.
Allow? That word?
Yeah.
That's
No, Weber. The both parties, or the parties right now, I mean, they have a full field, and we can, or they won't just ask, you know, those persons to just look, you know, drop out, and let's try a female this time.
It doesn't work that way.
It don't work like that.
And this is what I'm saying all the time.
Pat, how you think that's going to fit in? How you get in?
What I would
you think that's going to? Or when somebody retire, we waiting for a retiree or something. How are we going to fit in?
I don't know what their strategy is, but what I do know is that most of the leaders in the Caribbean are well aware that the United Nations, that they've made some commitments as it relates to what they call the, well, let me not go back to the Beijing thing. But let me just say that we have committed to fielding women, and all of the parties that I'm aware of, who have been in the trenches for most of the elections past, have agreed to field women. And there is a target date, 2030, we should have equality. We should have, according to the UN, and we have, like I said, we have signed on to all these conventions. We should, by 2030, have at least, in our area, at least 33% of parliamentarians being women. But we are not seeing that happen. We are not seeing anybody who is willing to make, or at least to make the commitment a reality. They commit to things on paper, but people are not making room, you know. The same way we have been discarding the sustainable development goals or paying little attention to achieving them, we are not putting the strategies in place for us to get there. And that is my concern.
Pat, I mean, I've heard you got strong feelings about, you know, getting this thing started. Nevis, you mentioned about the other Caribbean countries and whatever it is. St. Kitts and Nevis, the Federation has led many countries in different things. So
why not this one?
You know, being the way that well, that's what I'm coming to. I think you should start something. All right, why don't you start with your feelings? You know, start something. Maybe get the other women to contribute to what you want to do, and then put your hand in the ring. You can go independent. Nobody is stopping you from running. So, put some feelers out there, and you can start the process. And maybe you would be one of the Caribbean leaders of a woman party or something to that effect.
I hear you.
Leader of getting women involved in the Caribbean politics.
Women are involved in Caribbean politics.
Maybe it's time. No. They're in politics already, but as leaders.
Well, you're getting, and I would imagine that some would have, the ultimate goal as, to be some, not all really want to be.
Right now,
But in the Dominica,
right now, based on how you feel, you need to start putting some feelers in Nevis. Nevis is a small place, so you would know people who you can reach out to, and put you, like they say, get in the ring.
No,
caller, let me just make a point here. I've been making a point, not as forceful as you, but maybe in a diplomatic way. And I keep saying to people, generally speaking, and I said it to my staff as well. I said, if you decide you want to get into Charlestown from here in Bath, there's a road that you can take that goes down where Miss Butler used to live and by Black Hat. And you can then turn left there by Gager. And I had a live example of it today. So I wanted to get into town, wanted to get real in a hurry. But when I got by Gager, the road was blocked. They're by Reliable Motors. So I had two options. I could have waited until it was unblocked, which would have been the shortest distance, or I could have gone the longer version. So I decided I'll go the longer way, the harder version, so to speak. And guess what? I eventually got there.
Yeah,
And I got the job done. So
Sure.
I tell people sometimes, when you think the only road to a particular destination, right? You may stay there all your life and you never get where you're going.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, if you're going to go to catch the boat leaves at a particular time. We have a 2030 deadline here. That is what that is what we should be shooting for. When are we going to start to get there?
Yeah, but I'm saying, Pat, you don't have to wait for 2030.
It's not me. It's not my fight. It's not my fight. I advocate because I'm on the radio.
I am saying, I hear you on the radio. I didn't hear anybody else. So
Yes.
that's why I'm talking to you. I am saying, you know of maybe 100, 200 women that you really could talk to and form something. Instead of coming on a daily basis, sure, you're getting the point out, and then you have a platform already. So what really are you waiting for? Coming in every week, saying the same thing. Sure, you need to do something else instead of going that route. You see, it's not working that way. You see, all over the years, as you mentioned, but I'm saying it wasn't that way all the years. Based on what you're saying. So I am saying, if you're ready now, this is what you have to do.
I hear you, and
Go
I
and
would
test the
never.
waters. Yes, I'm waiting for your response.
Oh no, I'm saying I hear you, and
Yes, go ahead.
you were saying something?
Go ahead, Dr. Bartlett.
Okay, yes, I said I hear you.
They have so many ways.
Caller, just hold. Dr. Bartlett, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, like I said, I hear you, and I've been an advocate, and I would continue to be an advocate until something happens. I'm going to talk about it every opportunity I get, and some people are going to hear me, but until something is done, then I'm not going to stop. And I apologize to all those people who get tired of hearing me say that, and I would pick up your challenge, Ecclesiastes 3, is it 3? Ecclesiastes 3, that says for everything there is a season. And I'll take up that challenge. Trust me, I will, because things need to change. Things need to change. Stanley said he wants off.
You have so many ways these days. Okay, you got the radio, you got the internet, you're on the ground there. So start something.
Okay, call.
All right.
Okay,
Fine.
all right. Thank you. Yes.
There is a season that Pat says, so I guess she's waiting for that season. And therefore she will strategize by talking about it, and then would always get somebody to say, well, you're talking about it, why aren't you doing something about it? And therefore, it comes right back to there's a season. There's a season.
For everything there's a season, Stanley.
And I'm saying to you, the clock sometimes runs out, you know. And in terms of time.
Yeah, but it's not about me. It's not about me. I said take the focus off of me. I'm agitating.
Are you sure?
It is not about me, Stanley. I can run when I feel like. You know, it's not about me.
Well, why don't you run
Seven
now?
times. The people of Jericho. How many times they went around Jericho? How many times they went around Jericho, Stanley? Trust me. I can go around Jericho 7 times, and then I could wait until the last moment to shout. On the last shout.
Let me,
is when it happens.
Let me share with the panel some of the experiences I have and give you a caution. Be cautious of taking information from people and representing it, because a lot of times they leave you alone with it and deny it. Right?
They left you out in the cold.
Yes, because even as you have this number of new parties with the election looming, and then I get bored and I show some of you as well of people who are supposed to be running. And when you go and you said, well, Stanley, I understand that you're running with this party. Not me. I didn't tell this person this or that, as the case may be. Be very careful with those kind of things. And then you will be left explaining, but Mr. Brand told me so. But I didn't tell him nothing. It happens all the time. That is why we're very cautious with information that we bring here to discuss. There are a lot of stuff people tell me I hear, but you're very cautious. Even when in news, when we're presenting certain things. You got to be very careful with people saying, they always said it, they never told you that.
Well, my thing is that when we look at the game of politics, there are times when people keep a card or some cards close to their chest or their breast, whichever you want to take, however you want to take it. And I'm just trying to agitate or to force the hand and for that card to be played. Let's see the card. So you continue to agitate, and this might be a strategy. And for the time of the season, and there is a season, and I'm saying, sure, as most politicians do here in our sphere, they don't tell you, but the strategy is it might be sprung on you. For me, if I'm going to run, I'm going to tell you I'm going to run. And that's how I function. There's a reason why I'm going to run, and I will run. There's some who tell
If you were to run again, you'll hire the same manager?
Well, that was a season, as Pat may have brought to the fore.
So that means you will?
Look, there are times when you might go right back and force the person to capitulate or to change their strategy, change their thinking.
So they might change, if they change their thinking, you will rehire them?
Become clean. Watch me with hyssop and... Yeah,
If they change their thinking, you will consider rehiring them?
it's likely.
Okay, that's fair.
It's likely.
Anyway, I really don't want the focus to be on me. Like, I just want it to be that more women are involved. I encourage women all the time. I'm encouraging women all the time to get involved. And I'll use, if I may, Rebo, I'll just use the opportunity right now to, and I've done it before.
Just let me take this. Good evening.
ladies.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Webo, and good evening to your panel. This is quite interesting. My ears are peaked, and I've been listening quite intently, maybe even a lot more than I would normally do, hearing about a new party. I don't know. I'm not well versed in politics. I just listen a lot. But what I would like to say to whoever, quite interesting, if I heard you say correctly, that it's an all-female party. Well, actually, I've been hearing it, not outside of Vaughan Radio as well. They've got to come correctly and differently. Mr. Stanley has been speaking about seasons. This is a new season because we're ready for a change. People are ready for a change. It's got to be different than the norm, the way things have been going now politically. I would encourage whoever it is to think wisely and come with a strategy that's going to encourage people to welcome and embrace them, because it's something different. It can't be the same old package wrapped in red paper for Christmas, if I can use that at this time of the year. It's got to be different. And so to whoever the potential candidates may be, and I'm excited if they're women. I think women are very powerful human beings who can bring a lot to the table. But we got to make sure we do it right.
Caller, might I ask you a question for my own edification?
Okay.
I'm listening you as keenly as you said you were listening us. Are you suggesting that whether it be women or whoever else wants to get involved, and we were focusing on women, you're suggesting that they should, but they must be different and not want to be a part of the same old, same old?
That I think is what people are ready to embrace now.
So that if you were listening keenly, the suggestion that I made as a possibility or an alternative, and that the caller made and others made, that when sometimes people could consider that if they cannot get something done via strategy A, maybe they can try strategy B?
It doesn't hurt to try strategy B.
Okay.
But you better come with a strategy.
That is, and okay, I got you. All right.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be a long stoop.
Okay. I got you.
You know?
You think caller perhaps maybe that perhaps is one of the reasons why people don't want to try a strategy B? Because they fear that you might be met with a long troops?
Quite possibly.
Okay.
Quite possibly. The thing is...
And therefore it is easier to go where the strategy A is already tested?
I think it would be good to come with a plan B. Pat said something about 2030. I would humbly suggest that we make it long before 2030. We need it right now. We need a change right now to something different. So whoever the persons may be, or party, or whoever is interested in doing this, I would encourage them. Of course, you can't move faster than you need to if you're not ready to make that move. But if they feel they're ready to make that move, I would say do it sooner rather than later. 2030 sounds like such a long time from now. Thanks, Webber. Have a good night.
All right, thank you. Dr. Bartlett.
Yeah, just to inform the caller, 2030 was not my date. I didn't pick it. It was just a date I referenced because it is a date that most of the signatories to the United Nations who would have signed on to the Beijing Declaration, I think that is something that they had agreed to. And they were supposed to be making, moves towards achieving that. And so that's why I would have made the reference to the 2030. Like the caller, I hear, and she's not the only one that I've heard within recent times, expressing the need to have something different, you know. And I would imagine that there are other people out there who would be interested in, you know, in making that change. Like I said, I advocate for it. I would not shy away from being part of that change, because I think that the people of Nevis indeed, you know, deserve better, you know. Not trying to suggest that what we have is the worst, but I think that we do deserve better. And I would, like I said, I would continue to agitate. I would continue to, you know, make Stanley uncomfortable with the notion that, that women ought to be given a fair chance. I'm just saying that we don't, and I think the caller before this one made the point, you know, that we have been first in a lot of things. And I'm like, okay, we've been first in a lot of things. Why not try to be at least second in this one? All around, we see people like Dominica just had their elections completed. And we had, I think they had like 12 women, you know, that they were feel that they're not as independents. These were women who were on the two main political parties there. And they didn't, you know, they're not keeping back women in Dominica. Or, you know, in Cuba, we say we already in Cuba you have over 50%, you know, of the parliament represented by women. Other places, people are making progressive moves, and I feel so bad that we here and we boast that we have 98% literacy, and we're still here struggling. We ain't even got 1%. I mean, well, let me not be that absurd about it. It is really 20% when we look at it. But we need to do better, you know, and that is just my point. And I have appealed as much as I can, and the thing is, I know I'm not a popular person with the politicians when I say that. You know, they watch me bad, they treat me bad. But it's a part of it. If you're going to open your mouth in this country here, you're going to have to be prepared, you know, for boyish kind of responses, because that's how boys behave. You know, you can't tell them, not, you know, they want to fight. I mean, and that is the level where we're at. We need to change, you know. Someone say we need a paradigm, you know, shift in the way we think. We need to start thinking progressively, and that is just what I'm encouraging all the parties to do. If it is that people have to form, you know, new parties to make that change, then I encourage that, you know. I really would. I support.
Well, I kept saying that...
Doc, let's go to Mr. Brand. Mr. Brand, let me take this caller first, and then I'll come to you. Thank you for holding. Good evening.
Hey, Weber, good evening. Mervyn Hanley, how are you?
All right.
This question is for Pat. She just responded to a caller and saying that 2030 is not her date. That's the date she was, I guess, the organization. So I am asking Pat, what is her date?
My date was yesterday. But I've had to wait. So, like I said, if there's not, it didn't happen yesterday. But if it could happen by 2030, you know, I'll be comfortable with it. If we ever make a move now, I'm like, women out there, and I've said that already, I threw out the challenge already, I think, if it wasn't last week, it was the week before, that women ought to wake up and, you know, take our rightful places here. Because
so you are willing to lead the charge, Pat?
I'm willing to do whatever is required so that women are represented at that level.
You're willing to lead the charge?
Mervyn, good night. Yes, Mervyn, I'm willing to lead the charge. Like I said, I've been advocating for it, and I continue to advocate for it. I need to stimulate, you know, the interest of the women. I need to, you know, try to see what I can do in my little corner, you know, to get people mobilized, you know, because we have to mobilize. We can't just sit down and expect that it's going to happen, because it's not going to just happen like that, you know. And if you listen to especially Stanley, you know, women going to have a hard fight in this country. You know, nobody going to make any, you know, no allowances for women among your boy.
But you just made it
okay,
statement.
Okay, caller, you're finished?
That's what I'm trying.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Brand.
What I would say, Weber, to our people, both men and women, is that whatever they put their hearts to, whatever they aspire to, whatever dreams and aspiration that they feel that they need to pursue, I would simply say to them to try and motivate themselves, prepare themselves, and work towards it. I think tonight we look at option A and option B. If it is that we try one strategy and it doesn't work, look at an option B. I want to make the point again, Weber, and I'm going to keep making the point that I don't want our people to feel and think that they don't have it within themselves to overcome whatever obstacle people may appear to be putting in front of them. I ran an election, Weber, in 2013, and I lost that election. And I slept for about 2 days. My mind, my body, and my soul was tired for 2 days. It's a kind of tiredness, Weber, that I've never felt in my life. I remember working in the bakery where we had a hurricane and part of the bakery roof came off, and the whole of Nevis was kind of shut down, and the bakery was the only lifeline. And we stood there, myself, Franklin Brand, Garnet Smith, and we stood there for almost 2 days making bread for the whole of Nevis. I never felt tired because it was a cause for our people. And I want our people to understand, Weber, no matter the difficulty, no matter the obstacle, stand firm, aspire to what you want to aspire to, whatever strategy you need to deploy. If you need to go around, if you need to go under, if you need to go over, if you need to push things out your way, do what you need to do to get where you want to get. And that is simply my advice. I said tonight, Weber, I have a daughter, and I wanted to understand, as a woman, that there shouldn't be any limiting factors in her way of thinking in anything that she aspires to get to work hard towards it. And that is my simple message, Weber.
I would add to that I think we're doing pretty good in that department in Nevis and St. Kitts. The evidence shows that the women, they have great confidence. They've been doing very well, much better than the men, and so on and so forth, right? But I tell you something. Maybe we've been trying to make the point now all night, and maybe for weeks, maybe months. Again, so let me use a more authoritative figure. Teacher Vanny gave me a book to read, and the essence of the book says the same thing. If you're still looking at this particular method and this particular road, and you think that the only way you can make it is this particular method and this particular road, is a good recipe for failure. You've got to try something else. You've got to try something different. And that's how most of the times you make it. And again, I like to use my examples that are not from here so that people don't vex with you. The people in the United States, when Hillary Clinton was running, she said, first woman president. First woman president. And she said, the time has come, the glass ceiling will break. She ran, she lost. Now 4 or 5 women are running. We ain't hear from her yet, except she came out and she criticized one. The question you have to ask, if when she was talking about women, it's time for women, what didn't she really mean it's time for Hillary?
Quite true. Exactly.
Right? There's one other point I want to make. There's an old story in the Bible about Haman and Mordecai. And when the king said to Haman, what should I do to a man who the king would like to honor? What should I do for him? And he went and he said all sorts of glorious things. If I can find it, I'll read it tomorrow. And to his dismay,
it was easy.
The king said, go and do that to Mordecai, to somebody else. When he said it, he didn't mean it. He thought it was him. So we got to be careful. A lot of the times, when we're making these arguments and statements, be careful what you ask for, because you might get it.
Well, I kept saying that
you
we're
kind of
not.
lost me there, disconnected me, but You're kind of disconnected.
I have the
I
great
didn't really get the nexus.
Yeah, but I have the great ability to do that.
Yeah, you always try to disconnect me.
Yes.
Um,
And
I
they,
don't know why.
I told, but I told
know
you
you're
before.
right on me, but
I
it's-
told you before, Dr. Bat, it is strategic, right?
Yeah,
You
well,
notice I just make a reference to the good book. I go up and that I read it all the time, and I try to follow it.
yes, yes.
And so when I say things like that, it's strategic. And there are a lot of other people who get it. Nina, you got it?
Everybody else might get it except me because I'm
Yes,
on
I
a different
did.
wavelength
Oh.
right now.
Then Stanley, you got it?
Yeah, well,
Bran, you got it?
well,
Well, you see, in the same good book, when the good master used to speak, not everybody got it, and he never apologized.
Right, that's why I said I don't feel bad that I didn't get it.
Let me just take this, Dr. Bartlett, get back to you. Good evening. Caller, please call back. Dr. Bartlett.
Yeah, I like I said, I didn't feel bad. The thing is, I hear Mr. Brand speaking, and what I like, you know, from people who are representatives, you know, people who say, well, I would create, because that's what how they got in office, you know. They said they're going to do this first and they're going to do that first. And for him now to come with this motivational speech, you know, for me that is just a little too bland. I want to hear Mr. Brand say, look, our party is committed to this and we are going to, you know, we're in the process of seeing how we can reorganize so that we can give women the fair chance that they deserve
Okay,
within our party.
Let me
Hello,
just take
Stanley,
this,
let me
Doctor. But good evening, thank you for holding. I'll come back to you. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yes, Weber.
Yes.
I know Stanley, you know, built that window. I remember he built that big window in St. Thomas. So this question is for Stanley and Mr. Brand. The bridge that's going to be built in between St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm just figuring out, you know, the best way and how, you know, Patches and the unity government, how are they going to build it with landfill or how are they going to get it done? This is for Mr. Stanley and Mr. Brandt.
Okay, the two of you tackle that. Listen what I got to do. I have to, a group that is, I'm going to give a few minutes. So we're going to wrap up in about 10 minutes, and I'm going to bring this group on. They want to get a message out to the thing. So let's do that. So Mr. Stanley and Mr. Brandt, quickly to that question.
Well, there are quite a number of people who are proposing to build a bridge. I do not know what the other people will be bringing to the table, but I simply have recommended a landfill bridge.
Okay. Now, Mr. Brandt.
Well, I have a slightly different concept. Mr. Stanley often speak about these load of people who have a whole heap of money and don't know what to do with. My thinking is that I would place within a section of between St. Kitts and Nevis what I call a reclaimed land area, maybe a few 100 acres, and allow these folks who have these whole heap of money to build these skyscrapers there and do all kind of things in there and use the some of that fund to connect those from St. Kitts to that reclaimed land and from Nevis to that reclaimed land. So you actually reduce the length of the bridge. The length of the bridge would be much shorter than building a bridge direct from St. Kitts to Nevis.
Okay, now let's go back to Dr. Bartlett.
Yeah, so I was just saying that I wanted Mr. Brand, you know, but maybe he's not the party leader, so maybe he's not in a position to do that.
Dr.
So
Bartlett?
I just wanted to know if their party, if they have a vision about including women, if they have a vision of taking part in achieving this 2030 goal, or if they even have any consideration of being part of achieving the sustainable development goals as a government. And one of those goals, goal number 5, is the equality, at least gender equality.
I would remind you, Dr. Bartlett, in case that you may not be aware, the chairperson of the CCM party is a woman, and they are the person who would give some directive and guidance as to the direction of the party.
Also, you're not aware of what your
I have
party's
answered your
position is?
question. I have answered your question.
Oh, no, I just wanted to know if you were aware of what your party position was as it relates to, you know, achieving this goal. You don't know, I mean, it's fair. I mean, Well, I'm satisfied that, Mr. Brown may not know what his party's position is as it relates to.
I never
And I
said
might
that.
have
I
to-
never said that I don't know, Dr. Bartley. Those are your words. So don't try to say that I don't know. I am saying to you, Dr. Bartley,
Oh,
with all due respect, Dr. Bartley.
maybe I misunderstood. I take that back.
Well, I don't want you to misunderstand me.
Maybe,
right?
yeah.
I have answered your question that the chairperson of CCM is a female who gives the directive and the roadmap as to the direction of where the CCM party should go.
Okay,
And I would leave
now
it.
you want to get in.
I just want to rest assured that the government share that responsibility to equality, and don't leave another cornerstone standing there behind because of this male dominant kind of thing. But also, I think the groundwork have started. Part is going pretty well as far as I observe, and I would encourage you to go in a direction which doesn't cause you to depend on any existing political party, but start an initiative that would bear some fruits in the future, and it would be something new. Every new party say that they want a shift in this political thing and shift, but they always end up the same anyway. But I can sense that there is an environment now and an atmosphere where people wish that there was an option. I'm not saying that all would be well with a new political party in terms of winning the election, but I think the ground is fertile for difference of opinion, and there are many issues that I know that the female would be best to deal with in terms of formulating policies. Again, as it relates to the female gender of our population, because there's a lot of things going on, and we overlook them as just customs and norms and so forth. A lot of things are happening to the female.
By way of information, everybody's aware that they have a new organization that is formed to address a lot of the suggestions and things that we just have outlined?
Is that a question?
The People Democratic Alliance, yeah. I'm asking whether we all are aware that there is a new organization.
Oh, well,
sometimes they say they're not a political
Okay,
party.
but I'm not even
but
talking about that. But you see, all that party is saying, and we are saying here, is good groundwork. It's
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So I just want the public, as I said, by way of information, because if you're listening to us, it almost seems as if nobody's doing anything. But there is a new organization. They have a program here
There's things in the making.
on Monday evenings, and they have opted not to go and harass any existing party.
Good.
But they have gone and said, well, we have these new ideas and we are going to do this. So I just wanted, by way of information,
Yes.
to let the public know that they are here every Monday evening from 8:30.
But that is what I've been saying all the time with Pat. People take the initiative and they do things, and ultimately that role is going to lead somewhere, or that role is going to stop somewhere.
But it's nature, because just the other day I planted a jelly tree, and it's like, I got to wait 4 years.
So
You see, and that is again is a good debate, is a good discussion, that people have to understand that you may feel that you have an idea, an approach, or a roadmap, and you may well feel, and you may well be right, that it will take you there. However, when you start talking about the debate, sometimes you can find somebody with equitable passion and vision and viewpoint as well. That and then, as I sometimes would say also, is that you got to stick to the facts. and the evidence, because most of the time emotion won't get you anywhere, get you in trouble.
Well, I'm just saying, we know that you have to do. And the idea of give, or I'm waiting to receive, I don't subscribe to that notion.
Well, Mr. Brand put it bluntly when I asked him, Mr. Brand, would you vacate your seat or your position purely because Edric says my daughter needs a chance? What was your answer, Mr. Brand?
No.
I said no.
Let that be the last word. We are going to take a quick break and we'll bring the second segment in.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. We've got over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. Call them today at 466-4938.
We are back in this episode of Thought That Get Results. Our first segment featured Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Conrad Nye Liburd, the Honorable Spencer Brand, and Edric W. Stanley. The second segment features the Circle of Peace organization, and Mr. John Prentice is a member of that organization. Mr. Prentice, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Herbert. Good evening to the listening public.
Why don't we do this? Tell us who you have with you, tell us about your organization, and tell us why we're here.
Okay. Our organization is the Circle of Peace. I have next to my right Elkie Edwards, he's the secretary. And also we have about 6 or 7 members of the Circle of Peace. And we're here because we're having a program tomorrow called Mystery Shopping, Customer Service Mystery Shopping. And we're going to give out some certificates tomorrow that people who done well in different organizations, we went around and do mystery shopping, and we're going to give them something that the others can feel a little, maybe a little jealous and want to do better.
Good night, everyone. I am Elkie Edward. I'm presently the secretary for the Circle of Peace and an assistant as well to Mr. John Prentice, who is the founder for the Circle of Peace program. What he was talking about, let me give you a little more information on that. The customer service program began on the 2nd of September, and with that program, we decided to we saw the need basically for customer service in Nevis, because sometimes you go into a business place and you ask people, the employees for help, and what you hear is over there, go there, so, you know. And with this, in this modern time, you can't turn a blind ear to this, because if you know better, as they say, you do better. So we decided to take this on and go into the different business houses, and we had a conversation with the different managers, and they said, sure, why not? So we dispatched mystery shoppers at the different locations, and they came back with a full detailed report on what transpired during their time. And what we got was not that very positive in some businesses, but we also got some good responses as well, some good replies. And with those who really did well, they really are the ones who are really trying, who are like the, how should I say that, Mr. Prentice?
The pillar.
The pillars in the businesses to really push and do what is right. So with that, we are closing the program, which is tomorrow, the 11th of December for 2019. And we are closing with an award which is being offered to the best worker, the best customer service worker. So we will be presenting an award to them tomorrow. Some of them don't know that this was going on at all. The managers are aware, but the workers, they don't really know. So we are going to go on to the business places and surprise them with an award, just to encourage them to foster, good habits, good customer service, because times are changing and people can't afford to stay in the same frame of mind all the time, because you're going to travel and, hey, you're going to see things that you don't understand. So right now, we are encouraging employees to kick it up a notch, learn, grow. Let's do this the right way. The world is changing, so come on, your mindset has to be changed as well, to be updated to this modern time. So we're going to give them an award, and we're hoping that the others might, get a little jealous and say, next year I'm going to kick it up. I'm going to do my best, give my best. So I'm going to get an award next time. So
Okay.
this is what this program is about, customer service
It's
program.
been going on for over a period of time. You went to the business over a couple of weeks, months, what?
We actually did the business houses like twice in 2 separate months. We started in September, we did it in September, and we did it in October again.
And you did small businesses, big businesses. You chose them. About how many businesses did you look at?
We look at about 20 businesses,
Mm-hmm.
and we have about 31 certificates to give out tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. And you said that the persons did not know about it, so you just sent people out to shop or to ask questions and so on, and then you made an evaluation of how the responses were and how they were treated and stuff like that.
That is right.
Mm-hmm. And Elke, you did said that some did good, some did not so good.
Yeah.
Overall, what would you say? Had more pluses than minuses, or what?
There were more negatives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were some were not, like, it does not matter how a company offers training to the staff. If the staff does not make up their mind to learn, it will remain the same. It will stay the same all the time.
So you find that the companies, in some instances, do make an effort to train the staff.
Yes, they do. For instance, TDC. TDC trains their staff. They offer the best training. And some workers are just bent on remaining who they are. They're not bent on, they don't want to learn, they don't want to grow. They just believe, okay, this is it. But with the training offered at TDC, I can attest to that. It is an excellent training they do for their staff. And some don't learn. But for those who learn, they really put it into practice. And you see it in their daily work.
When you give, when you have the final event and you distribute the certificates, will you give reports to the businesses so as to assist them in knowing whether the staff were doing, pretty good, or where the weaknesses are, where the strengths are, and so on?
Yes, very much so. What we did after we assessed the worker, we sent a complete, detailed report to the managers, who were very willing to have it done. And we showed them where the weak points were and what they needed to do to provide the best suitable training for the staff. and we were well received, I must say.
Okay, and the program which was done, the staff were not aware of it.
No, they were not. Only the managers were.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you said that this final giving of certificates will take place, is it tomorrow?
Well, yes, some of them will be done tomorrow. But those are with some of the business houses how should I say that, government?
Government,
entities?
police, they're going to give the certificate at the administration building. And we're going to go by some of the places, the small business places and also the big business places, and surprise some of the workers that the other workers can see what it's all about.
In terms of who were outstanding in certain places and stuff like that?
Yes.
What inspired you to take on this project?
Well, what really inspired me is like walk into some business places and you feel like nobody cares. You're going to the places and you ask them, can you help me with this? Just go down there, you find it. You know, and they look at it and say, when you step into a business place, the manager walk upright, but the workers is not upright. So you got to ask yourself questions. Are these people willing? Are these people really want to work? Are they just out for a salary? So once I look at this, once the manager is not there, they're supposed to act like the manager. Nobody's supposed to, if somebody come into the business place, what they're supposed to ask, who is the manager? Not I'm looking for the manager. Who is the manager? Because you're supposed to be acting like you own the place. And that is not showing in Nevis in certain places. Okay? In certain places it's going like, I don't care. You know, I just come to work. And it's just looking like I'm only want a salary.
Those employees, out of this exercise, the employees who have the deficiencies, will they be able to know so that they can change or develop?
Yes, what some of the organizations tell us that they want us to meet with their workers. And we're willing to do that. That we can talk to them and tell them about different things, what we're looking at. Like, what we're looking at really is eye contact. Really that. And we're looking at when you're going to deal with a customer, you walk the customer down the aisle. And if you're going to leave the customer to help another customer, learn to say, excuse me, not just wait there, I'm going to hold on. You learn to be proper, make the customer feel that they love.
How much of that, though, you think is just natural culture, our way of life?
The natural culture really, we got to understand this is 2019, and we got to understand we got to live with the world outside, because I just joined a reference going to St. Martin. You don't know who is the manager in some of the business places because everybody act professional. You come to Nevis, and when you come to Nevis, some of the business places, you got to ask, where's the manager? But when you're going to professional places, everybody act like the manager because everybody know I'm in charge. This is my workplace.
You were nodding your head in agreement when I asked about if it is a culture, the way of life. You wanted to add something?
Yes, it is very much so the culture. But in as much as it is the culture, we can grow. we can grow from certain areas of that culture. It is the way of life of a people. The way of life of a people does not have to remain the same because the world is evolving. So in as much as the world is evolving, we as well, our culture as well, should grow with that. So in as much as it is the culture, it can be changed. But it has to take the people, the individual, to want to change, to want to see change in order for that to happen.
Did you find, generally speaking, that most, if not all of the society require or demand good service?
Require or demand good service.
Most
good
people
service
do that.
Should be offered.
Yeah, most people want good service.
Should be, yes.
However, when it becomes our turn to provide good service, do we do that?
Very much so.
We do provide it
Very
as
much
a
so.
people?
Yes.
So we shouldn't have a problem, because if I like great service, right? When it comes to my turn now to serve you, and I give you great service, then we shouldn't have a problem.
That comes with learning, though.
But isn't it true that we have a situation where most of us, a lot of us, like good service, but we don't give good service?
Yes, that is so. That is so. But the state of mind has to be, I can do better. I can change that. I can do this. You know, there need to be a positive mindset moving forward.
This might be a difficult question, but what are your recommendations, how we get it changed? Because I think you use an example when you said that you use TDC that offer very good training, but alas, not everybody takes it in.
Yeah.
So what do we do? How we fix that?
We need to infuse an attitude of constant learning in the people, in the employees, even in the employees, even the employers sometimes need that as well. Because if the head is not trained, you don't expect any better from the team.
Prentice, how do we get such a seismic change in the society?
It's all about one thing, self-esteem. We got to learn to build that. We got to learn to try and learn from others. Because training sometimes is just training. You got it inside, but you don't bring it out. It's all come from the heart. Sometimes you got a lot of training, but to the end of it, you look at the workers. Sometimes I know some of the managers. Sometimes I just get a person 2 months training, and look of the act. These people are real, but when you look at it, it's all about the person's heart towards their job. Because many times we coming out to work, and when we coming out to work, we feel like, I'm not supposed to work today. I hate this place. Every time a customer come to you and say, but I believe I'm going to here next year now. I believe I'm going to here tomorrow. Do not mess up the people's job. If you don't want to change, leave. Or check yourself and change your ways if you want your job. Because people are watching. And the thing about it, what I notice, who judge the people is your own local people. It's not the tourists. It's the local people going to say, I ain't going by the supermarket because every time I go in there I get a down spirit. Some people, when you go into a supermarket, you feel like a king coming back out. You have smiles coming back out. But when you go by other places, you just feel down. And that a lot of people just turn away from the other supermarket, other business place. because of the behavior of the workers sometimes.
Okay, we're going to basically be wrapping up, but quickly, this project your organization took on, what else, and you're going to be having the ceremony, you said, the presentation of the certificates tomorrow?
Yes, Mr. Hoover.
Could you just go over that again for the people who are just getting it?
So tomorrow we're closing in on our customer service program, which began on the 2nd of September, and we're going to be giving out some certificates tomorrow to a few individuals who performed excellently and outstanding in what they did. And some of the places that we went, I had to be in smiles, because the place you never expected to show that much courtesy, be that much involved in it, that was a surprise in some of the places. And we just want to show them our gratitude, and we want to encourage them to keep up the good work, because what they do, somebody else can be affected by it, can be infected by it. And this is what we want to grow on people.
Okay, and finally, about your organization, generally speaking, what you do, and do you encourage or you appeal for new members, and how can folks do that?
Well, for the customer service program, I think some of the places need a shake-up, because some of the workers are trying and some are not. So I think they need to ease off some of the workers, even put them in another place to work. It's hard for a person to lose their job, but I think the Circle of Peace doing a good job helping the business places to go on a good foot.
Okay.
Because it wasn't looking good. Some of the places, believe me, the service there wasn't. In 1 out of 10, I say not even 3%, not even 3. So they need to pull up their socks and always tell yourself, as a worker, I am in charge. Once you tell yourself, I am in charge, you're gonna act like you're in charge. Nobody got to ask you for the manager. They will take you for the manager because you act like you're in charge. And that's all about doing your work, self-esteem. You have to watch the customer straight in his eyes, give him a good smile, thank you, come again. Those are the things we're looking for.
But Circle of Peace generally was formed in 1991 by Mr. Prentice, John Prentice, and since then it has been active in different community projects, projects such as, well, with his love for talking to people and hoping that people can get a sense of who they really are, and him wanting to give back to society. Circle of Peace was birthed, and because of this, he worked at the prison for how long, Mr. Prentice?
20 years.
For 20 years, and Circle of Peace began from that, where he began with a few prisoners, reformed prisoners, when they get back into society, giving them, directions as to how to keep on, the straight and narrow path, a few he has helped. We also have a few members who are ex-prisoners who are empowerment leaders in the Circle of Peace organization. And what they do, they go to different churches, youth groups, we have ex-prisoners going to do these things, like talk to students and encourage them, to keep on the right track.
Yeah, also we do, because with ex-prisoners, what we are doing now, we monitor you for 6 months, sometimes it's more than that. We watch to see if you're going on the straight path, and when we finish, we give you a certificate to encourage you, and you can take the certificate to anyone in the business place and give us a call at Circle of Peace Youth Program, and we can tell you plain, we see some change in this guy. It's not an easy job because sometimes we get a lot of negative sometimes.
It's not just talking to them as well. Since they're back in society, we have to help them with shoes, clothes, and food until they can get back on their feet. So Circle of Peace is really out there to help and to assist people who really want to get back into society and accepted.
The Circle of Peace organization, we thank them very much for being the second segment of the program this evening. First segment featured the heavyweights. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community. Talk that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely